The function of a sponge bar in a knitting machine is to keep the needles from flopping around. For the machines that use this method of needle control, it usually goes in a channel right about there and should be inserted metal tray side up, sponge side down on top of the needles. It should be springy, cushiony, and pop up easily, unlike the one that I just removed. A new sponge bar suitable for this machine is shown in the top picture. The first symptom of your sponge bar wearing out might be that tuck stitch becomes difficult. It might also fail to knit Fair Isle, or it may do things like this. My yarn broke when I tried to cast on and some stitches failed to knit off. A worn out sponge bar may also cause jams. I used to really like rebuilding sponge bars, but the source that I had for sponge that always succeeded is now closed, and I haven't had as good of results rebuilding lately. So either we need to find a dealer that has an authentic sponge bar for the machine in order to make sure of success, or we need to come up with a workable substitute. I've been trying out the idea of creating I-cords to substitute for sponge bars. The one I'm trying on my Brother 260 machine is 7 stitches wide and knitted at stitch size 3 on my SK150 machine. I used a much smaller stitch size than I would normally use if I were knitting a garment or a hat out of Red Heart Super Saver. Then I would choose 5, 6, or 7. For this, I chose 3. When I say I-cord, I actually mean mock I-cord, a stockinette strip that is narrow enough that it just rolls itself into a tube. I knit the cord to about 10 inches longer than the needle bed is wide because I want to have some extra to work with on both ends. When you have enough length, lift all the live stitches off onto a latch tool, pull through the yarn tail, and leave the yarn tail long because we're going to need it. The trickiest thing about using an I-cord is getting it into position. And the best way I've found so far is to use the same rat tail brush that we use for cleaning. With the needles installed, insert the brush into the sponge bar channel. Wrap the yarn tail around the spiral brush, tie it to the twisted wire part of the handle, and it should pull right through. This step is one of our reasons for using Red Heart Super Saver. It's strong. Therefore, using it to tie the brush to the cord works. It's also good that this yarn doesn't make a lot of lint. I've used I-cords before when I couldn't find anything suitable, especially for unusual antique machines. Sometimes you just can't get the original parts. This is a Brother 260. I just cleaned it and then discovered that I did not have a spare sponge bar handy. So this is a temporary fix. Before doing what you see here, I tested stockinette, which knitted fine. I'm now testing Fair Isle. You will see that I started out very cautiously, going slowly and observing. That's the only prudent way to behave, because if you have estimated wrong how much cord you need and the needles are still floppy, you could cause a jam, potentially damaging both the needles and the carriage. I was very surprised and pleased to see how well Fair Isle actually performed. In this view, you can see a little bit of stockinette that I knitted ahead of the Fair Isle, as well as some mock ribbing. Now we're trying out tuck stitch, which is one of the most challenging stitches for a knitting machine. The reason being that the needles are required to hold multiple loops and then knit them off. So they're under more stress, and the carriage needs more precision than average to get the job done. But this tuck stitch is going very well. One thing I have learned when using stockinette strips or mock I-cord instead of a sponge bar is that they tend to loosen up. So at first this one felt really nice and snug, and now it's beginning to feel just a little sloppy, although the knitting is still going well. So I may go back and create an 8-stitch one and pull it through. Here are the hats that I've been knitting, and they both went really well. Since sponge bars for the 260 are available, I will order one. But it sure is nice to have a substitute available in an emergency. It can also be a helpful thing to know if you happen to live in a part of the world where it isn't so easy to order new sponge bars.